welcome back and happy Tuesday. I'm here with an old friend of mine, Melissa Frakman, who is founder and managing partner at EMVC. And we on Tech Tuesday have looked at a lot of different angles as it relates to financial services and tech more broadly. Now we're going to look from a geographic perspective and move across to India. So this week we're going to be talking all about what's happening in the fintech landscape in India. So Melissa, you are one of the best to speak about this. Can you first, let's start a little bit with who is EMVC? Why are you doing this?
Sure, it's so great to be here on the famous Tech Tuesday. I have been working in India my entire career. It's been over 16 years in the market, and it's been just absolutely thrilling to see the trajectory of digital finance happen in the country. And it's been a long-standing belief of mine that how innovative and interesting things are in India digital finance is highly under-evaluated in global markets. And there's fintech companies and investors in the US and Europe that have no idea that what's happening in India is light years ahead of what's happening here. And EMVC was frankly born out of a frustration that global corporates in the US in particular were reinventing the wheel many times in terms of business models and strategies to reach scale for their fintech innovation when it had already been deployed in India or was already underway in this laboratory of 1.3 billion consumers. And so we are a early stage fintech fund. We invest equity in the best entrepreneurs across India and other high growth emerging markets, and bridge that gap for them with capital and connectivity across borders.
Interesting. So when you talk about India being light years ahead, what are some tangible examples of what that looks like for the people who really have no exposure or idea of what's happening over there?
Yeah, I mean, the most prominent example is digital payments. So India's national ID system, Aadhaar, reached scale over 5 years ago, where over 1 billion people had a national biometric digital ID. On top of that, the government built a biometric payment system that is currently doing more volume just for the national system than Amex or Visa globally. And it's an open, interoperable API layer on which any developer or startup can build. And so on this payment system, UPI, Unified Payments Interface, there are hundreds of startups experimenting around every piece of the payments puzzle, from recurring payments to e-commerce to KYC to onboarding. And there's a lot of different kinds of consumers in that market, from high-end shopping customers on Amazon to rural villages who are getting their first smartphone to test new things.
Wow, it is fascinating when you put it in perspective like that. You think about a country versus a global movement of like an Amex or one of those. So when you think about the future, and we're putting kind of that future glasses on, what are you most excited about with India and fintech?
So India's still a complicated, messy, emerging market. And in the short run, it's highly complicated and highly volatile. So I fully expect and embrace ups and downs over the next few years. But I am very bullish and excited about a future a decade or two from now when startups and technology developed in India are truly the global leaders and are proliferated globally in partnership with corporates and others. That's why we're investing very early stage and being very hands-on with them as they grow.
And when you think about some of the startups that you're most excited about, you can certainly mention, I mean, there's ones that are going to be in your portfolio. Which ones, or maybe more broadly, which ones, kind of give you that passion more than, like, what are you super excited about as it relates to the startups coming out of there?
So there's a lot of different things happening. I'm very excited about startups that are serving sort of infrastructure layer or SaaS-based plays. Mm-hmm. One of our portfolio companies we just announced is Wealthy.in, which is building a digital layer for the entire retail investment management industry. There's only 8% of India invests in financial assets, and so there's so much room to grow and empower, basically a Charles Schwab of India. There's a lot of interesting startups building things around API layers for banking and insurance. Great things going on in terms of bringing e-commerce to the next 500 million users that are just getting their first 4G network. And are connecting to digital transactions for the first time. And then there's the big players, Paytm, PhonePe, etc., who continue to innovate and are basically becoming platforms for lots of different products and services.
Yeah, there are so many things that are happening, and I'm certainly very excited about seeing the future of what's going on in India. Anything else that you want the audience to know?
India, for many people in fintech in the US, feels extremely far away. And I would just share that it's worth making the effort to learn about, get exposure to, speak to startups that are there on the ground on the market. We are partnered with many Fortune 500 companies and some of the best fintech investors and thinkers in the world as their partners on the ground in India, and delighted to chat with the global fintech community about ways to get involved.
Awesome. All right, well, thank you so much. And with that, you can click the link below to read Melissa's full background and bio. And as always, until next week.